start. It's Wednesday, March 17th, 2020. It's 4:30 p.m. This is a special meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. Call the meeting to order and ask our city clerk to give us a roll call, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Present.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Paduri.
Here.
Councilmember McAdams.
Here.
Councilmember Coletti.
Here.
Councilmember Emilio.
Here.
Mayor Peak.
Here.
All are present via Zoom meeting.
Thank you very much. We have two items on our closed session agenda. Item A is public employment, the city manager performance evaluation. And item B is conference with labor negotiators, city negotiators regarding the city manager contract negotiations with the city manager. Do we have any public comment?
It does not appear we have any public comment. No one waiting in the waiting room.
Okay, given that, would you please make me host? And if everyone that's not a council member, please exit. And I'll call the city manager and city attorney if council wishes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Hello again. It's Wednesday, March 17th, 2021. It's 6:31 p.m. It's a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. Welcome. I'll ask the city clerk to please give us a roll call.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor Peak.
Here.
Councilmember Emilio.
Here.
Councilmember Coletti.
Here.
Councilmember McAdams. Councilmember Paduri.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Here.
I will check the attendee list to make sure that Councilmember McAdams is not there. I don't see her there. She should be signing on very shortly.
Yes. Let's turn to Councilmember Smith, if you would be so kind to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to
Allegiance to the
the
flag
flag of the United
United
States
States of
of
America,
America and to the republic
which
for which
is
it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
Indivisible.
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Does council have any adjustments to the agenda? If not, may I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
So I'll second that. May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Emilio.
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti.
Yes.
Councilmember McAdams. Councilmember Paduri.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams, we just approved a motion to approve the agenda. Do you want to vote on that, or shall I mark you absent since you just,
Sorry about that.
okay.
I actually had an amendment I wanted to make to the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, we're that's under consent.
Oh, got it. Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0 to approve the agenda as is.
Thank you. And we have one presentation, Steve Hawk. Is he, let's see, I can check. Is he one of our attendees? Can we, Mr. Hawk?
I do not see Mr. Hawk. I do have a hand raised. And that's Mr. Parker.
Okay, is Mr. Parker, are you speaking for?
No, Steve is right here beside me,
Okay, perfect.
Okay,
but we don't see ourselves on the screen. And we're not supposed to, huh?
okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
We
Okay.
do hear you, and we will start the presentation right now.
Okay. I want to talk,
But wait, you got to make sure that Chuck is Chuck Green available as well, because we're introducing him. You see Chuck Green?
I do see
Sure.
Charles Green.
We're introducing him.
I can, with the mayor's permission, I can promote as panelists, and then the three of you will have access to talk.
And then also Darcy Foreman. She's
Wait,
gonna,
this, I'm sorry, Mr. Parker, this is a short presentation. So if one person could speak for the group of you, I'd really appreciate it.
we had heard that a couple of us could talk. Nobody will be long.
1 minute each.
Okay.
1 minute.
Okay. I want to talk about the NOAA building at the end of Lighthouse Avenue overlooking Monterey Bay and the Great Tide Pool. It's supposedly going to be sold by the federal government. There are many, including prominent American oceanographers, who say a better idea is to make it a center for ocean art, science, technology, and education. It would be open to the public and to students, whether from Pacific Grove or around the country. Plus, we would be saving the building's tremendous sea murals by artist Ray Troll. All of this, and there's much more, would reflect positively on Pacific Grove and the peninsula, and would contribute to the benefit of the world's seas and creatures in a time of out-of-control climate change and pollution. Now I'd like to introduce educator and museum curator Darcy Foreman.
You don't see her, then I'll just introduce Charles.
Okay.
Okay, so.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Yes.
Good.
Hi, I just wanted to say a few words because I live in PG and am a museum designer and planner and community person and an arts educator, president of the board of the Youth Arts Collective, and working with Dr. Charles Green and Steve to try to figure out what we could possibly do with this. And I'd like to introduce, you know Ken, and Ken Parker is also local, a famous, world famous photographer and oceanographer. And he has worked at the NOAA building, at this actual building, and with Dr. Green. So take it away.
Yeah, so just going to, and thank you very much, Darcy. I'm just going to, in 1 minute, introduce Dr. Green. Dr. Charles Green is professor of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences at Cornell University and a member of the Oceans Visions leadership team. He was, in fact, actually a classmate of mine at University of Washington's oceanography, and I even attended what was at the time his highly anticipated dissertation defense. Anyway, he is known internationally for his research on marine ecosystem responses to climate change and has become an enthusiastic and active leader of this project. He also pioneered the science of acoustic whale tracking with the infamous Navy SOSUS array in the submarine canyon off Point Sur that was so successful at identifying the precise locations of Russian submarines during the Cold War. Since it has been declassified, he's been using it for the purpose of tracking whales. Take it away, Charles.
Right. Well, first of all, I very much appreciate the council being willing to listen to somebody from the outside. I was visiting with my wife as on sabbatical leave at Hopkins Marine Station when I came across Steve Houck and became really inspired by his vision of doing.
We lost him.
All right, we seem to have lost Charles Green. Let's go on to
Can you-
the presentation. Ms.
You-
Kendall, you have the presentation ready to go?
Yes, yes,
And
we'll present.
if anyone else wants to, then after the presentation, then we're going to go to council discussion comments. And then later in the agenda, not much later, we'll have general public comment. And if anyone wants to make other comments about this project, they're absolutely free to do so during general public comment. Ms. Kendall. Ms. Kendall, I'm not getting any audio.
We tested it just before the meeting started and it was working fine. Can you check your volume, Deputy?
Well, we appear to have a technical glitch on this program, but we've got a slide should be coming up here in a moment with some details. Is it still running?
Yes.
Hmm. It doesn't seem to be going very quickly.
No, it's set, it's timed. If you can click, through it, Carrie, and
Yeah, please.
go ahead and click through it if you can.
Our apologies to Mr. Hawk and the viewers today that this isn't working.
I do have some hands raised, Mr.
Well, I
Mayor.
think
Just
we're, after the presentation, we'll go to council.
okay.
But I think this slide says what the message, the real message is. Okay. Again, apologies to Mr. Hawk and his collaborators. And with their permission, we can post it on the city website, I'm sure. So we'll go out to city council comment. I'm sorry you didn't hear much about it. Any thoughts? Councilmember Paduri.
Thank you, Mayor. So I like the entire idea that this is going to be something that will be useful for the public. Talks about oceanography. I did take a look at the purpose behind actually establishing the PBRB, that's the Public Buildings Reforms Board, and the Act of Federal Asset and Sale Transfer. And really the purpose, from what I've read, is that it's for redeveloping surplus federal property. And there was some commentary that it needs modern facilities. So I suspect that being that there's a purpose, whatever this needs to be reconfigured for, we'll have to gain some traction from the federal agency that's driving it. It could be OMB or GSA or anybody else. But otherwise, I'm open to the idea. Thanks.
Well, I want to add my endorsement of the concept. I think it's intriguing, and obviously that building is, because it's surplus, means it's not being used. It has some wonderful art, and it would be a shame to lose that. The proverbial 2 thumbs up for me on, I'd be very interested in seeing this this concept, this idea move forward. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I remember hearing about this property potentially going up for sale back when, a couple councils ago. So I guess my question is there what's the immediate timeline? Do we know when it's actually going to be up for bid? Is it expected that the city would bid on this? I think we get first right of refusals, but I'm not sure. Perhaps those are the kind of nuts and bolts questions I have. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other hands, Mr. Hawk, that's the feedback, but I encourage you to also communicate further to answer Councilmember Coletti's questions and communicate with council and others, of course, as you're moving forward with this project. And again, any further public comment, you're welcome to participate in just a few moments. All right, we'll now go to council and staff announcements. The report on closed session, that's my report. Council met to discuss 2 items. And the report out is that council consolidated performance evaluation feedback for the city manager, and we'll be providing that to the city manager very shortly and inviting him to attend our next closed session meeting on April 7th at 4:30, start time 4:30. And that's the end of my report out. Mr. Harvey, do you have any staff announcements?
No, Mr. Mayor, we do not. Thank you.
Council member announcements. Not seeing any hands. I've got a couple. One is we have boards, committees, commissions training. It's on March 25th. That's a Thursday, starting at 6 p.m., 6 to 7 p.m. If you want more details, see myself or email myself or the Assistant City Attorney, Heidi Quinn, or the City Clerk. And that following weekend, March 25th, we have a spring shopping event, downtown Pacific Grove, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Hopefully, this is the start of our economic recovery. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to say it was Mr. Stillwell's birthday today, and a couple of things. He is originally he was part of what's called MS Building Supplies on Del Monte. He also at Caledonia Park, the basketball courts are named for him in the pool area too. And he expressed to me that he wanted to say nice job at the park just above the concession stand. So that was all my report.
Thank you. We'll now go out for general public comment. Looks like we have a couple of hands raised. Ms. Kendall,
Yes, we do. Dan Fernandez, you have the floor.
welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. I want to comment on the Coastal Art and Science Center. I know I didn't get the name perfectly right, but I think it's a wonderful idea. It would even further enhance the reputation of the area scientifically, and it would put PG even more in the framework of providing this type of service to the public. So I wanted to give it my strong vote of endorsement. Even though I'm not a resident of the city of Pacific Grove, I strongly support that effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Charles Green, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I got muted before. I could have narrated the slides for you, but I do hope you get a chance to listen to the comments, because those will listen to the narration, because it will actually answer some of the questions that were raised. The most important of which is the procedure that they're following now is they're planning to sell that property in a portfolio of 12 different properties, basically spread over the whole US. So there's 12 federal properties. The total value of those properties is about $750 million. The Pacific Grove property is probably the smallest and perhaps the least valuable of the properties that are being sold. But their intention is to sell it as a portfolio to a single bidder. And their plan is to do that in July, which is why we are trying to move quickly. And really at this point, just trying to seek the encouragement from the community, the city council and the community, because it's going to take a lot of work in a very short amount of time to do this. And we wanted to make sure that the community was behind us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Peter Mountier, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Good evening. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank and recognize Council Member McAdams for the idea of having a vaccine clinic in Pacific Grove for hospitality workers. To meet that need, the Chamber coordinated with the California Visiting Nurses Association and will be holding a clinic at the Asilomar Conference Grounds in the FAR Kiln Rooms on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. Hospitality and restaurant workers are encouraged to attend this clinic, which is open from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. All insurance types are accepted and service will be provided for the uninsured. The Chamber is handling signups for this exclusively over the phone. Time slots will be assigned to up to 10 individuals in 15-minute increments. And we anticipate approximately 150 people for the morning session, with potential for an afternoon session between 1 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. on the same day, depending on how many requests we receive. We can be reached for this at our phone number, 831-373-3304. Please do spread the word to anyone in hospitality that you know that hasn't been vaccinated and let them know to contact us. That date again is Tuesday, April 20th from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. at Asilomar Conference Grounds. Give us a call. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Inga Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sandra. I'd like to speak to that the science and technology in the NOAA building, old one. I think it's an excellent idea. That's what that building should be used for, public meeting. It's got the parking. It's not with just some work inside. Ray Troll's murals are just wonderful. I remember when he put them up, but before that, I had met him in Alaska and fallen in love with his artwork. I consider that building rather historic here. It would be a wonderful repurposing of that building and a great benefit to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Jennifer Carson, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm a resident of Pacific Grove, and I just wanted to add my enthusiastic endorsement of the Coast Museum idea. I walk by that property all the time and think that Steve has landed on the perfect use, as the last speaker also said, the public for the enrichment of our visitors and our residents. I have a background in physics, so I have a lot to learn about marine science, but would be very happy to help out with the planning stages. And I take Charles Green's warning seriously, that I know that we have to act fast and there's a lot to do. And I also have, before I did my dissertation, I worked at a science museum as a manager at a science museum. So I'd be happy to offer all of that expertise. And I'm just incredibly enthusiastic about that being the right use of this property. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the offer.
Lisa Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I just also want to speak in support of the Coast Group's proposal for the NOAA building. Besides the incredible Rachel murals on the outside, which are certainly historic, if not in years, just for their significance in Pacific Grove and on the Monterey Bay. But I was fortunate enough to be given a tour shortly after we moved here 8 or 9 years ago, before the fisheries group moved out. And the interior, the work that was done there was just fascinating, and the hallways all had marvelous displays, graphs and all sorts of beautiful representations of the research that they were doing. So the multidisciplinary approach also is such a great idea, blending art and science and technology. And so I hope the council will do everything possible to facilitate this project going forward. This is something PG deserves, and it's just a perfect setting for displaying so much of what PG is all about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne Imay, I believe you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hi there. Thank you. I've been listening about the NOAA building, and I think that turning it into a coastal museum would be wonderful. I'm curious, though, if it doesn't happen, because I understood that Mr. Green said that there were 12 properties that were being sold in one portfolio. If it gets sold to someone else, can you tell me what will happen to that property? Like, I don't know, they put in a restaurant, or does it stay the same, or what happens? That's it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Yes, Mr. Green has his hand raised again, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Green, we usually don't get 2 bites at the apple, but please, since a lot of people seem to be interested and supportive, please go ahead.
Right. I just wanted to answer the last questions that were raised. And basically, we don't know what will happen with that property. There there are a lot of constraints on what can be done with it because it is in the coastal zone. So the Coastal Commission really has a say in it, as well as the city of Pacific Grove. So there's a lot of constraints on it, which is probably one of the reasons why they were unsuccessful in selling it before, because they probably were asking a price that wasn't realistic given the constraints on developing that property. So that's what we know. I know that there is a push at this time to develop housing for, basically lower housing for, less expensive housing in the area. So that the federal government could step in and decide that that's one thing that they could pursue there. But right now it's not really clear. It's really a big question mark. And, there's no real answers at this time, but it could be good, but it would be a shame to see the current building potentially demolished. That's our biggest fear. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Hi. I think this is a wonderful idea. I think the concept could be expanded a little bit. I'm an architect who specializes in adaptive reuse of historic structures. I believe this is a historic structure, maybe a little different than the lighthouse itself, but definitely part of the U.S. Coast Guard's reservation property that was granted in a grant deed to the city of Pacific Grove. I think you have a responsibility to really look after this property in the same way that the proponents of this project are proposing to look after it. I suggest that the city of Pacific Grove coordinate with the applicants or the proponents of this project to seek the assistance of the state, meaning California State Coastal Conservancy's assistance to acquire this property and to develop it in cooperation with the community's full participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else?
And we have Jane Haynes, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm about to explain to you something I think you don't want to hear. But based on the facts about Measure L, as I understand them, I think what I'm getting ready to say is very important because I think the city could be losing $500,000 on it. I think the city council needs to have a third attorney to advise you about Measure L, and this is why. A public record I received 2 days ago, a copy of which I'll email you after I finish these comments, was a February 11 letter from attorney Colantuono to Mr. Laredo. The letter had a section at the end for signature by someone who could bind the city of Pacific Grove to retain Mr. Colantuono's law firm for legal services, described as a typographical error in a city council resolution related to the Measure L tax. No other legal services were mentioned. So he's retained for that sole purpose. Mr. Harvey signed the authorization on behalf of the city and dated it February 17. However, Mayor Peake stated in the video of the March 3 council hearing that on February 24, the city council agreed 4-3 to retain Mr. Colantuono. February 24 is 1 week after Mr. Harvey had already retained him. So the current status of this matter, as I understand it, is first, Mr. Harvey agreed to the city to hire Mr. Colantuono a week before the council authorized it. And second, Mr. Colantero's representation is limited solely to this dispute about the typographical error. And the letter mentions nothing about other issues like liability for the city's losses. My opinion is that this council urgently needs to speak directly with a third attorney, not through Mr. Laredo or through Mr. Harvey, but directly. The council speak directly to a third attorney and ask that attorney the implications of these matters. And I think you need to do it very soon. My 3 minutes is nearly up. So please look for an email from me when you arrive at home. If I thought there were a senior city official receptive to what I've just said, I would have discussed this with that person before commenting to you. But based on what people have told me, I made these comments instead directly to you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Your Honor.
All right, we'll now go to the consent agenda. And as usual, I'll pull item 9A, local emergency actions to be held immediately following the consent agenda. And I'd like to pull item 8B, B as in boy, water allocation, entitlement, and wait list. And to hear that as item 12C. C as in 12C as in cat. And Councilmember McAdams, any other items to be pulled from the consent agenda? Councilmember McAdams.
I'd like to pull 5A because I just have an amendment I'd like to make to the meeting minutes.
Okay. Let's hear that as 12A, and then we'll push the other ones back down. Under 12A, that's unfinished and ongoing business, and then council goals and tactics will become B. Vision statement and values, C. And the water wait list entitlements, D. Okay. Any other, council have any other items to pull from the consent agenda? Seeing none, does public have any items to pull from the consent agenda?
I see no hands raised.
I'll move to approve consent agenda with the changes as amended by the mayor.
May I have a second?
I'll second that.
May I have a vote, please?
Yes, Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll briefly summarize what we've just done. We've held a second hearing of the fiscal year 2021 mid-year budget modifications and second reading of the ordinance. Thank you, Ms. Hannah. We've received the report on core revenue report for February 2021 from Ms. Fratti. Thank you. We've received the Monterey Salinas Transit minutes from the board meeting of February 8th from Councilmember Emilio. Thank you. I've sent in my mayor's regional meetings report. And we've received the minutes from the Planning Commission January 14th meeting. And that concludes the consent agenda items. Now we'll turn to item 9A, local emergency action. Our city manager, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all know, this is the time on the agenda when we review local emergency actions taken in light of the global pandemic and the shelter-in-place order. As you can see, there aren't any items for your ratification this evening. There aren't any items presented simply for informational purposes. However, if I may, Mr. Mayor, if it's acceptable to you, I would like to defer to Councilmember Pedori, who could provide an update to council questions that were raised at the last meeting related to curative COVID-19 testing, if that is acceptable to you.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Peduri, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Mayor, as well. So as per the last discussion that the council had around curative, one of the items that was raised was to get an endorsement from Dr. Marino on how to proceed forward. So what we've done is we've actually, the city manager has talked to Charles McGee at the county level to understand what curative is able to offer and provide appropriate comments there. As a follow-up to that action, we've also formalized an email to be sent to, which was sent to McGee and Dr. Marino. I have not heard back on that email yet, but I think from Mr. McGee itself, it appears that he was okay with the concept of curative. But I understand Dr. Marino is a busy person, so we may have to wait on him to provide a response per se. But from McGee, verbally at least, the communication has been that it's okay.
All right. Well, I think we have a number of other comments on what's happening in regards to COVID, since we're now in the red tier. Yay. And I suspect Councilmember McAdams is going to talk about that. Let's go out to public comment first, and then we'll come back to council. Do we have any public comments on this item?
I do not see any public comment or any hands raised at the moment.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. As Peter Mountier stated, I have been working with the chamber on coordinating a vaccine pod for Pacific Grove hospitality and food service workers. So I wanted to thank VNA and the Silomar Conference Grounds, as well as Mo and Peter at the chamber for their work on this. The hospitality workers will receive their first and second dose, regardless of insurance or ability to pay. So that's very exciting. I am sure if you have been trying to get an appointment for a vaccine, they are difficult, and a lot of our hospitality workers, work more than one job. And so if you're not able to stay on your computer and refresh and check for availability, it makes it even more difficult to get an appointment. So I'm really, really happy to see that take place. Also, I wanted to thank Public Works. I had asked them about a week and a half ago, inquired about the mask signs in downtown. I noticed that we didn't really have any out, and they quickly distributed the last of the inventory that we had. I think that was around 12. The city manager can probably correct me on that. And also, we are in the red tier, as the mayor stated. That is very exciting for, of course, our businesses and restaurants. There is some very strict criteria with regards to capacity. So I would encourage you to check on the Monterey County website, the health department website, if you are a business, so you can learn exactly how much you can accommodate. But I would like to remind everyone, we're in the red tier and there's quite a ways to go. So we're not going to be out in the street celebrating yet. And I hope that you will join me in proceeding with caution. So it took us a year to get here, and it would take us much quicker to have to regress. And I know that nobody would like to see that. So thank you so much.
I'll just add that people are getting vaccines, not fast enough, but nevertheless, that the number of people getting vaccinated keeps growing. That's a really great sign. If people have questions about the new regulations, what does the red tier mean in terms of opening on businesses and indoor seating at restaurants, for example, please go on to the county website to get more information. And if you still need some help, I would suspect if we called our planning department that they'd be able to show you where to go for that information. And just to reemphasize that all the basic procedures for minimizing the spread of COVID remain in place, which is mask wearing, social distancing, washing hands, and no gatherings, unfortunately, or in small groups. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just wanted to kind of report out on the small business assistant grants, assistance grants. That's kind of hard to say together. The council voted a while back to put $50,000 from the general fund together, and on March 11th, so just a few days ago, at 8 a.m., we started accepting grants. It was put out on Facebook and social media and the website. And I'm going to ask the city manager to give us the exact numbers, but it was, we had a lot of traction and a lot of people applied for the grant program in our community. And it's a great way to help our community specifically. It's going to be a first come, first served basis. The applications had to be halted the next day, February 12th, at the end of the day. So for about 48 hours, we accepted applications. My hope is that we'll be able to reopen application window if we can grow that pot of money, maybe not from the general fund, but we're trying to put together a campaign for raising money across the community that would make that fund be able to be reopened. So I'm going to ask the city manager if you could provide us with the number of applicants and anything additional that I might have missed.
Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, the city received 32 applications. We are in the process of reviewing those applications and following up with the applicants. As Councilmember Tomlinson indicated, in light of the number that we received, we did close the window. We are trying to gather some additional details from some of the applicants and make a recommendation for funding. We are hopeful that we can do that and make that determination in early April. One of the questions that we're also trying to address as far as the so-called subscription component to this program is the ability to have that contribution be tax deductible, and we're working on that answer. So that's part of the hitch in trying to launch that particular piece of the program. Also, as council probably knows, the stimulus money that will be received from the federal government, should council decide, could be used to augment or embellish or extend this program. The city is slated to receive $2.9 million, as you've announced previously, Mayor, and we anticipate receiving that money in 2 tranches by June. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment, council comment on this item? Seeing none, Let's go on to item 11A, Task Force on Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually don't have a presentation to go with this. We have been working on this for quite some time. We've had a couple of presentations at the council. So basically, the last time that council discussed this, the city attorney and the city manager agreed to put together a draft ordinance, which is included in your agenda packet this evening. And, you know, specifically the council was wanting to know, you know, who would be in the group, how would they be appointed, how long, etc. So within the ordinance, it is clearly defined and stated. And as far as the progress on the initiative, there were 4 steps or 4 recommendations that the working group had brought. And this was the last component of that, which is forming a task force on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. I will now go out to public for comments. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to make comment on this item?
Yes, Mayor. Sue Paris, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I had the privilege of being part of the working group that considered with Councilmember McAdams how this task force, proposed task force, would be set up. And I think that the plan is well thought out, and I really appreciate that the city of Pacific Grove is in a place to initiate this important effort for diversity, equity, and inclusion in Pacific Grove. I think it's going to make a tremendous difference for the people who live here, particularly those who identify as members of, shall we say, marginalized groups, whether racial or sexual orientation, sexuality, or others. And it's also going to make a tremendous...
Are you going to go out now? Can you turn off those lights?
Can you still hear me?
Ms. Paris, could you speak up?
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know if you heard anything I said, but anyway, I'm very appreciative of Councilmember McAdams for putting this measure forward. And I think it's going to make a big difference to people, both who live here, who are members of marginalized groups, and to people who visit here or can anticipate visiting here, to know that Pacific Grove is making every effort to be a welcoming and inclusive place, and to consider the critical aspects of diversity in this town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Inga
Do we have
Doimer,
any-
you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Sandra, Bill, Mayor. My question is, I'm sorry, I don't have the ordinance in front of me right now, but there was an incredibly awkward sentence that's been repeated in a couple of other ordinances that I would like to know, has that been changed? Thank you.
Thank you. We'll address that in a moment.
Dan Fernandez, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Dan Fernandez, I'm a faculty member at California State University, Monterey Bay. And I, like Sue Paris, also had the privilege of serving on the work group to help formulate the plan for the Equity and Diversity Task Force, and I strongly support it. I think it would, in addition to, I echo the points that Sue Paris made, and I also want to add that it could provide an ear for the city for people of the public to come talk to as well. So it really, I think, will benefit the city in multiple dimensions. And I wanted to share that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Feroz Karai, you have the floor.
Welcome. You might need to unmute yourself. All right, let's go on. Oh, there we go, Mr. Karai.
It was on there. So yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. So I, like Sue and Dan, was part of the working group. And you know, I'm proud that the city is taking a step. I've been a resident here for 4.5 years, and you know, I'm an immigrant and I'm raising my mixed race children here. And you know, not only want to kind of echo what has been said so far, but also, you know, just kind of share that I believe that this task force, you know, could also create and be a system that allows marginalized residents and visitors kind of the confidence to be more vocal advocates for their needs, while kind of mitigating the kind of fear and commonality of dismissal if they do so. And I also think that taking this step in the city's behalf also kind of shows the empathy and understanding to not only hear, but value what kind of the underrepresented residents and visitors are saying. And also could be a valuable step in kind of extrapolating data to aid in our ability to kind of learn more about this and learn and inform kind of how we action this. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll bring it back to council for our discussion.
Mayor, if I may,
Yeah.
I would like to just show one slide of a prior presentation, as I would like to thank, these were the working group participants, and we met in December and January. And so Dr. Fernandez spoke at public comment this evening, Naja Mark, and then Feroz spoke as well as Sue Paris. So it was lovely to work with them, and I do appreciate their time. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. I also just want to say thank you to the pictures that you just shared, Councilmember McAdams, and to you for making this happen so quickly. And I think that it was a great idea that council was able to support. And I like the policy, the ordinance rather. I don't have any objections with how it's written, and it's nice and clear. So I support this. Thank you.
Well, I'll echo the comments from Councilmember Tomlinson. Appreciate seeing the setup with Zoom. We don't get to see the speakers' faces. That's something I look forward to when we return to council chambers in person. So nice to see the folks' pictures, and appreciate that they helped out already. So I'm going to do something unusual for me, and I don't like the wordsmith, but in this case, because this ordinance might be codified. Actually, can I back up a second and ask our city attorney? We're passing an ordinance. Normally, an ordinance that's passed becomes part of our municipal code, but that's not going to happen with this ordinance. Is that correct? And what does that mean?
Well, my understanding of the direction of the council in terms of its concept review was to propose this task force as a limited term, but one that could become permanent. So the term, the sunset date provision, which is on section 4, and it's at page 88 of your agenda packet, is twofold. To begin with, this ordinance is proposed to have a sunset date and will not have any force or effect after July 1 of 2022, unless the council by a resolution chooses to adopt the resolution to make this as a permanent body. And if that happens, then this ordinance by its effect will then be added to the Pacific Grove Municipal Code as a new chapter in and containing all the detail of this ordinance. So you are teeing this up for a 1-year existence, and then during that year, if you choose to make it permanent, you can pass a resolution that then will make it permanent. If you don't pass that resolution, then this ordinance is designed to sunset.
Okay, thank you. So it just sits by itself, and if we don't act on it, then it goes away. But if we act on it, then it gets moved over to our municipal code.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
We'll amend the municipal code.
Okay, excellent. I want to go, I beg your council's indulgence for a moment. I'll go through the edits. Actually, I received edits from a couple of people. You just heard Inga Lorenzen Dahmer provided some edits. Ms. Kendall, could you put up the slides I have on this item? You'd be so kind. So as you can see, cross off, the cross out in strike through, it's in red, and then the addition is red bold. So I'm suggesting we delete the word nominated and use the word appointed, which is the word that's used in the city council and means that the process for putting people on the task force is exactly the same as any board, committee, commission. Also deleted some text on the purpose. It wasn't the right place. And then you see at the bottom, there is also removal of nominate and replace with appoint. Next slide, please. And here's that deleted text. I just moved it over to where it more logically lies. I didn't change anything. It was already in the ordinance. Could I have the next slide? A little wordsmithing by a majority vote of the council at council's discretion. Okay, next slide. And to act in an advisory capacity to the council and city manager, omitting civic groups, organizations, and the public. So this is a local government focused activity. And on the bottom, added to this programs. We might have some programs that need to be looked at. Can we go to the next slide, please? Recommending deleting section 3 because section 3 repeated section 7. Simply, there's no reason to put the same words twice. And then, let's see, then at the bottom, city manager is directed to implement this ordinance. And so there were a bunch of other words. This language seems to be very clear to me. Directed to implement. I think less words are better in this case. Next slide. Oh, that's the end. So I'm proposing those edits. It makes no change whatsoever to the intent of the ordinance as I understand it. Just a little wordsmithing. My apologies. And I'm doing it because also this might wind up in our municipal code. I'm going to go to Councilmember McAdams. I've got one more comment, but I'll hold on to that. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just, under section 040, removal of member, there was a couple of spelling or grammatic errors. And I think that, hold on.
Can we go back? Is that on the slide?
Right. I think, did you get the
Yes.
two? Okay, you did. Okay.
I believe so, yes.
And then also section 5. I just want to make sure we didn't.
Yeah, let's go back, Ms. Kendall. If you'd put up the slides again, section 5.
I might have just missed that.
I don't see a section 5 in your PowerPoint.
Or implementation, it should be under implementation.
I think it's because the words, no, go under implementation. I took out a number of words.
Okay, so then that's how you fixed it. I wanted to make sure, I didn't see it though.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay, trust me on that. And one other question that comes up from time to time on ordinances, that the ordinances are signed at the very end. This is a question for our city attorney, Mr. Laredo. It says approved as to form, and then our city attorney signs that. Could you explain to us what that means, approved to form?
The city attorney does not have a role in the enactment of the ordinance. The city attorney has reviewed this, has presented it, has participated in the presentation of this. And so this basically affirms that by my signature that this ordinance is appropriate for enactment.
All right. And so that's not to say that you were intimately involved with the development of this ordinance and that you are endorsing that it is clear, it stands up in court, and it's fully legal.
If I did not feel that it would be enforceable or that it would withstand review, then I would be telling you that at this point. Ultimately, the council gets to exercise its discretion, and unless I think there's no question that the council's acting inappropriately, I would acquiesce to the council's will. In this instance, I did work with the committee, your subcommittee. I took their direction, but I exercised my independent discretion in terms of putting together an ordinance that I believe is effective and is compatible with the remainder of the municipal code. So I do endorse this.
All right. Thank you very much for that explanation. I appreciate it. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to kind of as a follow-up, as far as how the nuts and bolts of ordinances are adopted and then put into into place and then amending our municipal code. Question for the city attorney: when does a number actually get assigned to the ordinance? When it actually becomes a part of our municipal code, or is it 30 days after the second reading? And I don't want to take a lot of time because it is kind of a sidebar question, but it's come up before.
The number that is assigned to the ordinance, they are sequential based upon their date of enactment. And I believe that the city clerk is technically responsible for that. But my understanding is that the ordinances are numerically sequential based upon their enactment on second reading.
Any other council member comment, discussion on the item? Seeing none, may I have a motion, please?
We'll make a motion to approve the ordinance.
I'll second.
I'd like to have a friendly amendment. That's to include the edits that were presented to you.
Yes, I'll make a friendly amendment to make the motion to approve the ordinance and the friendly red lines, amendments on it.
And I'll friendly second the friendly amendments.
May we have a vote, please? Thank you.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now go on to item 11B, annexation of the Mission Linen property located at 801 Sunset Drive. Ms. Hunter, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and the public. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I do have a short presentation. Let's see. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. As mentioned, this project involves the annexation of the Mission Linen property located at 801 Sunset Drive. This slide shows the Google map location of the property. And this project before you tonight is the annexation of the Mission Linen property located at 801 Sunset Drive. This 2.99 acre property is currently an island of county jurisdiction surrounded by public and privately owned properties within city limits. The existing development was built in the 1940s and has been in use as an industrial laundry since then. The property was identified in the 1994 general plan for annexation and is the only property within the city's sphere of influence. The current owner, Mission Linen Supply, is in support of the application for annexation, as is the Local Agency Formation Commission, or LAFCO, which has policies that strongly favor the annexation of such island properties for the purposes of orderly development and the practical provision of services. This map just shows how the property is surrounded by city limit. The primary benefit of annexation is that the city would become the land use authority and would have regulatory authority over future development on the site. At this point, staff is not aware of any changes to the property that the current owner may be planning. A secondary benefit is a modest increase in the city's property tax revenue that would result from the annexation. Both the Monterey Fire Chief and Pacific Grove Police Chief have indicated that the annexation would not put an undue burden on service or response times And in fact, both service providers already respond under the existing mutual aid agreements with the county and Pebble Beach Community Services District. The property is located within the Pebble Beach Community Services District boundary and has received fire protection and wastewater services from the CSD for many years. As part of this annexation process, city staff have worked very closely with the CSD general manager in the development of the memorandum of understanding included in your packet, which clarifies that exchange of services and allows for the continued assessment of a portion of the property taxes to the CSD to pay for wastewater infrastructure and treatment. This MOU has been reviewed by the CSD general manager and LAFCO staff and meets the needs of both. The MOU is included as an exhibit to the resolution of application to annex. That is the document required by LAFCO, along with the completed application, a draft of which is included in your packet. If the council directs staff to move forward with the annexation, these documents will be executed accordingly and included with that application to LAFCO. This is the fourth noticed public hearing on this item. Staff has not received any questions or comments from neighbors to the site throughout this process. There have been a couple of inquiries about the status of potential contamination on the site, given the long-term use as an industrial laundry. The Department of Toxic Substances Control does not include the site on its list of contaminated properties or sites of concern. The record does not indicate any contamination. In the event that a development proposal is submitted, the standard due diligence would be completed by the new owner or applicant. There is no indication that the city would be burdened with any cleanup costs. The City Council pre-zoned the property light commercial or C1 in March 2020. This zoning will convert to the actual zoning upon annexation. The zoning is consistent with the underlying land use designation of neighborhood commercial adopted with the 1994 general plan. Any future proposed development would be required to adhere to the uses and standards of those designations, just like anywhere else in the city. The CSD has no land use authority, but has indicated, given the large amount of wastewater produced by the laundry over the years, approximately 35,000 gallons per day, that it can handle the redevelopment of the site. Furthermore, just like anywhere in the city, a developer would be required to pay for improvements to systems as required by the scope of the project. Again, for the record, there are no redevelopment plans known to city staff at this time. In closing, this project has been in the works in one form or another for at least the last 25 years. City staff have worked very closely with LAFCO, Pebble Beach CSD, and other service providers to ensure that the annexation is beneficial to all parties. The property owner and LAFCO policies support the project. And that concludes my staff report. I'm available for any questions you might have. Oops, missed that slide. And thank you very much for allowing staff to make a presentation.
Thank you. We'll now go out to public comment.
Dan Fernandez, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I lost him, I'm sorry. Anthony Ciani, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Hi, this is Tony Chiani. I think it's important that the city recognize at this point and document that the property is a potential historical site. It was part of the 2014 California Historic Preservation Conference tour of modern architecture. That does not mean it cannot be adaptively reused for any number of purposes, but I think it's really important that it be acknowledged at that. I strongly support annexation of this property. I think it's a logical solution for how this property is situated within the city of Pacific Grove, and I hope you proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mayor.
Thank you. Any council discussion on this item? Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think it's kind of exciting to be on city council when an annexation comes up. They're kind of rare. I think the last one was in the late 70s for the Sillamar Dunes. And I'm just old enough to remember when Del Monte Park was annexed. My grandmother lived up there, and I remember her discussing it. So as was mentioned, this annexation has been on the radar screen for a long time. It's mentioned in our 1994 general plan. It's nice to see it move forward. I do have, however, a couple of questions. I guess the first question is, has any study or any analysis study, a soil study, for instance, or soil analysis been done to see if there's any contamination on site? And if not, or even if so, would the city be liable, or is the property owner liable for any potential cleanup?
Through the mayor, if I might, the city process of annexation has not undertaken any soils testing or any other screening of that type. Typically, that type of toxic or hazard situation is the responsibility of the property owner. It's my understanding that the city would not be acquiring any additional liability in that sense. Any cleanup situations like that are the responsibility of the property owner or a new buyer of the property in such a case.
Okay, thank you. And I guess there's probably substantial water credits. Those will remain on site as well. Is that correct?
That is my understanding. I was not able to obtain much detail on water credits from the Water Management District, but given what we know of the wastewater information,
Right.
They do have significant amount of water right now.
Thank you. And as far as any kind of potential increase in services from the city for fire or police, I'm guessing that's been thought of, but it's probably negligible. Is that right?
It's very negligible at this point. In the future, if a project comes in for redevelopment, that would be addressed during the development, permitting and entitlements phase.
Thank you. Thank you for the agenda report. I am looking at the resolution, and I do believe in the enacting clause, it mentions now therefore be it ordained. I think that should be now therefore be it resolved, as this is a resolution and not an ordinance. And those are my only comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. Through Councilmember Coletti's comments, I'm really excited too that I'm part of the annexation here. I just had a question. Why did it take so long? I mean, just for my benefit, why so long? I mean, it seems like it should have been part of the process automatically. It seems like it has taken a long time. So just for my benefit, if you can, please, thank you.
Sure. Any staff member with a little bit more longevity can feel free to jump in. I actually started working on this when I started my employment with the city about 2.5 years ago. Director Aziz just popped on. She can provide a little bit more background.
I don't have much more. I think it was just something that was kind of lingering, never a priority. I think when the open space area that's now a park used by the city was annexed to the city from the county, there was discussion, it's my understanding at that time, to include this parcel, but because of the wastewater and its associated uses, it sort of hung up including that parcel. But now we have the capacity and the staff that's able to understand and move forward in annexation. So that's why Ms. Hunter decided to pick it up and move this item that's been languishing for a few decades.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you. And I'll remember the day, St. Patrick's Day is when we annexed it. Thanks.
Councilmember Amelia.
Thank you. I'm in totally support of this, obviously, and that I appreciate Allison, the citizen that asked quite a few questions. You answered him, and that was terrific. Appreciate the presentation, and I know I approved this on 3/23/20. There was different council people on at the time when we approved it, and I recommend approval also on it.
Councilmember Smith.
Your Honor, I don't have any additional comment. I'm supportive of it, and if you'd like a motion, I'll make it.
Please.
Okay. I don't have the exact text in front of me, so I would just move the recommended action and just note the comment by Councilmember Coletti is probably correct as far as the language, but that's what that'd be my motion.
And I'll second that.
I'll just add that this is a great effort, and maybe Senior Planner Hunter has taken the mantle of the go-to person to get things done that have been languishing for decades. Thank you very much. Excellent report. May we have a vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson?
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri?
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams?
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. It's just about 8 o'clock. Would you, council, like to take a break? Could I see a show of thumbs up or down, or we'll do one more agenda item? Let's do another agenda item then. This is item 11C, Title 23 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code amendments pertaining to parking. Director Aziz, welcome.
Yes, let me share my screen and presentation. There it is. Thank you, Mayor and members of council. I'm bringing before you amendments to Title 23, specifically pertaining to parking. These were part of the city's recommendations in the current housing element that runs from 2015 to 2023. These were heard before the Planning Commission on February 11th, 2021. So the 2015 to 2023 fifth cycle housing element contains a number of goals and programs in order to facilitate housing within the city. Housing element goal number 3 states the goal is to reduce governmental and infrastructure constraints to the improvement and development of housing for people of all income levels. So that's the broad goal of goal 3. And then under that goal, there are specific policies. And policy 3.4 focuses on minimizing regulatory constraints on housing development, including parking requirements. So parking is generally considered a regulatory constraint as it relates to housing development because parking spaces can increase the cost of development, and land and space is allocated to cars rather than housing people. And you saw that, I think, with the state's recent laws on accessory dwelling units, where they allowed parking to be converted to housing people, not cars, and the parking spaces didn't have to be replaced. The proposed amendments are to reduce barriers to new housing unit production, and so that more housing can be built for people. So amendments are focused on chapters 2308 definitions, also the 2364-190, which is general provisions that govern off-street parking and storage, and also at the recommendation of the Planning Commission looking at the R3 PGR zoning district as well. So focusing in on this particular program 3.4a, recommended taking a look at parking standards, and there were 4 there that were mentioned. Tandem parking, shared parking, low vehicle ownership, and also reduced parking for affordable housing. So just focusing first on the tandem parking generally means 2 spaces or 2 parking spaces for cars where one is directly behind the other. And there's a couple of examples here. This type of parking configuration, it can add flexibility to developments and also allows more architectural design features and creativity as well. And you can see the 2-car traditional layout versus the 2-car tandem. And then also there's a photo of what that would look like in, for example, a multifamily development. Shared parking is the concept or idea where a public or private parking area is used jointly by 2 or more uses. And this definition was clarified a little bit more from what the Planning Commission considered, because I believe that this definition is clearer to the reader of the zoning code, so they'd have a better understanding of what that meant. And this would be permitted through a use permit. Tandem parking would just be permitted as of right as part of the design, but if development proposed to use share parking, a use permit would accompany that particular development. And the Planning Commission is the decision-making body for use permits. Shared parking may lend itself to properties that may have office or professional uses or certain retail uses that typically generate parking demand during the day. And if the building has residential uses as well, let's say it's a stacked multi-use building, those generally generate more parking demand in the evening or overnight. Now I will say, our last year with COVID is kind of threw more twists into that, but if things start reverting back to how people generally lived or commuted and also shopped, this is generally how the contrasting times of peak parking demand are seen with differing uses. And so the shared parking tool also seeks to make better and more efficient use of parking spaces and to reduce, again, a major element is to reduce overall housing costs for a new development. Again, shared parking would require a use permit, so it would be scrutinized by the Planning Commission, and a proponent would have to demonstrate how this would work and why it's appropriate. Low vehicle ownership was also included in this program for consideration, and that essentially means serving potential tenants of a housing unit that can demonstrate reduced parking needs, be that through disabilities of a variety of types, and even those at risk for homelessness as well. Again, a use permit is proposed if this type of reduction is put forward by a proponent. And again, the Planning Commission would be the review authority. This amendment would broaden the application of the use permit and any reductions of the required number of parking spaces would again have to be based on a demonstrated need. Of course, council remains the appeal body for use permits. And those three items that I just described, tandem and shared parking and the low vehicle ownership, reduced parking, the Planning Commission did recommend that those be moved forward for council consideration. The fourth item that the Planning Commission considered but wanted to study more, and so it is not moved forward to council, is reduced parking specifically for affordable housing that utilizes the eligible parameters as outlined in the state density bonus law, which is quite a complex law. And therefore the Planning Commission wanted more study and research on that. So in general, what this law states is that a developer may propose a greater number of units that is traditionally allowed by a city's general plan, a density bonus, but they are requesting additional incentives and reductions of regulatory requirements. And again, this is all in an effort to boost the number of housing units within the city. So again, the City of Pacific Grove currently does allow density bonus regulations through Chapter 2379. But the city does not have any specific refinements to it. Many other cities have taken the time to study the law and propose more detailed requirements or incentives based on their own unique city. So that is something that could be considered at a later date. As you know, the city has the Welcome Home Initiative, which is currently exploring a variety of policy directives to help facilitate additional housing. This is something that could also be wrapped into this program for immediate look and review, because it is in our current housing element, and again, is adopted by council and accepted by the state. Those are the four items that came out of the housing element. The Planning Commission did add another parking amendment for council consideration. They recommended approval of this. And it focuses on the city's retreat neighborhood, or the R3 PGR zone. So given the small average size of the parcels in this neighborhood, it can be difficult for many of the property owners to develop the 2 covered parking spaces that are currently required. And again, that takes up space that could be dedicated to housing, and instead it's dedicated to cars or garages. So this proposed amendment reduces the number of covered parking spaces to 1 and aligns the lot sizes with the implementation plan that I'll talk about a little bit. But it still requires 2 total parking spaces on site. So 1 would be covered, 1 uncovered if you're at a certain size. Again, much of the retreat is in the coastal zone, and this proposal is in substantial conformance with the local coastal program's residential parking standards. However, the size of the lots were slightly off by 1 square foot. This is proposing to bring them in alignment with the implementation plan. So instead of the lot size of 2 and including, instead of 2,699, it's proposed to 2,700, again, to align to the implementation plan. So currently no parking is required if a property is a size that is 2,700 square feet or less. 2,699 square feet or less, this would increase it by 1 square foot. Then the next change, this is the more significant change. If it's larger than 2,701 square feet, it would be, oh, I'm sorry, this is not the significant change. The next one would be 1 covered and 1 uncovered. So that would remain. We're just changing the lot size. Here's the significant change. If it's larger than 4,000 square feet, it would be 2 covered spaces. And that is proposed to be eliminated. So again, it would still be required to have 1 covered and 1 uncovered. So a total of 2 spaces on site. I will just note that the implementation plan is less restrictive than this. It just requires one covered parking space for lots that are larger than 2,701. But this is what the Planning Commission recommended. And with that, I will conclude my staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, sir. Don Murphy, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I support the changes. I think Director Aziz did an excellent job describing the benefits of these changes. I suggest that you consider going a little further. Right now, to have shared parking, you would require a use permit. And I'm not sure that is necessary. Seems to me that a project that applies for shared parking between the staff and the ARB review, that would be enough. And I'm just not sure why you would require an applicant to then go to the Planning Commission for a use permit. So I just thought I'd make a suggestion that you consider that. Eliminate the use permit requirement for shared parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Dione, you have the floor.
Welcome. Mr. Ciani?
Can you hear me now?
Ah, there we go. Yes.
I'm sorry, that's my technical glitch. I think this is a good, logical approach to make parking commensurate with the type of uses we have in the community, especially in the coastal zone. And I think that you should adopt this. I like the suggestion by former chair of the Planning Commission, Don Murphy. And I think it's important that we not put so much focus on the automobile, but more focus on the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joanne May, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I come from a small town. It's called Pacific Grove. I was born and raised here. I moved to Los Angeles, to Santa Monica, where it was still a small town. They decided to start building. And though I support the building for the economy of Santa Monica, they overbuilt. They took away the parking for these buildings that they built, and it became and is a nightmare. So for the people who live here in Pacific Grove, because I've come back, I applaud the changes, but if you've never lived in a situation of a town getting destroyed by overbuilding, zealous overbuilding, this is something to really consider because it will destroy your town. So please really consider some of the changes that you're wanting to do in order to move forward into the future. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I see no other hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's bring back to council. Council discussion. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for your work on this. I know that tackling affordable housing and our housing element is no easy task. So Ms. Aziz, I appreciate you and your staff keeping up with this and turning our housing element into tangible action. A lot of cities, that's very challenging to do. I serve with the mayor on the Housing Advisory Commission, and I'm also on the Monterey Peninsula Regional Housing Coalition. And so a topic that is often discussed is, and we sort of heard it in the comments, is people over parking, or housing people versus housing cars. And how really parking requirements are a key factor that will encourage and support affordable housing. Also, something else, like in our consultant meetings that we've had, is, that's something that we can do, is we have control over improving our local ordinances, which is a very low cost way the city council can show their support. So I definitely support the 3 recommendations. I do support eliminating the use permit for the shared parking. I think that those instances are going to be few and far between anyways. And I'd also like to show my support to accept that 4th recommendation of including the affordable development parking reduction as per our government code section 65915P. So that is really another step in the right direction to show our support for affordable housing and really put actions to where our words are, as well as moving forward on our council goal. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, parking certainly can create a great deal of discussion. And I did attend the last Planning Commission where this item was discussed. So I just want to be clear, Mrs. Z's, the 4th item in program 3.4.a, reduction for parking for affordable housing. Planning Commission asked for more time. Is that correct? And the staff present, or the staff documents have taken that into account, correct?
Yes, that's correct. They asked for more time to study it further, to come up with more specifics related to affordable housing to help reduce the parking requirements, which would facilitate the development of affordable housing.
Okay.
More detail on what that program would look like.
Excellent. Yeah, and I certainly, as liaison to the Planning Commission, I certainly support giving the Planning Commission the opportunity to advise and present options to the City Council. That's their purpose, and I wouldn't want to bypass them in any way on that. So I would support staff's plan to allow that 4th element of that program to remain with planning until they are able to actually review it. Is there a timeline on that, Anastasia?
Through the mayor, no, there was not a timeline on that, but given the complexity of it, and given that we do have a savvy housing consultant, Baird and Driscoll, already under contract, that's a potential. If the council wanted to go that way, we could look at augmenting their contract. We do have additional funds through LEAP and REAP grants for them to look at that in more detail and bring something forward to the Planning Commission. So that is an option.
Okay, so the plan was to allow them at least another look at it. Would that another meeting, is that the anticipated level of commitment on that?
I think given the complexity of the state density bonus law and other ordinances I've seen with other cities, I would give it more. And again, depending if council wanted to authorize using the consultant, I would give it a little more time than that, maybe 3 to 4 months to come up with something that is defensible.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable. And I believe the Planning Commission is also involved in a subcommittee affordable housing and ADUs, so that those two could mesh really well together. So thank you for the clear explanation on all of this. Certainly helped me understand it, and I support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. I also support staff's recommendation, and I'm aligned with Councilmember Coletti on this one to allow them to tackle the fourth issue. And that was a very extensive and comprehensive report. So thank you for that. And it's good work, and it's good. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Councilmember Pedori.
Yeah, I would like to echo the same comments. I think affordable housing, especially what I'm hearing from what we're undertaking regionally with the RENA numbers, they're currently assessing something for the what's going to happen beyond 2023. So anything proactive that we're taking right now is going to help us in the long run. So I'm all in for it. Thank you for the great presentation.
I also support the staff recommendation, support staff's effort to bring to research the affordable housing, parking, bringing that, assuming we have the funding for Barrett and Driscoll grant funding to go back to the Planning Commission. I also support Mr. Murphy's recommendation to eliminate the use permit for shared parking. I just philosophically, parking is an inexact science. You set aside so many parking spaces and think this is how they're going to be used or not used, and you can be surprised. At least that's my impression I've gotten from our very able planning staff. So partly due to that impreciseness, I see eliminating that use permit. And I have a question out of ignorance. A uncovered parking space and a carport are synonymous. Is that correct, Ms. Aziz?
And no, technically a carport can count as a covered parking space. I'll go back and look in the definitions, but an uncovered space is like a driveway space that's 9 by 20.
So an uncovered space can never be a carport, or it could be a carport if someone put something up. Is that correct?
I believe I'm just looking through the definitions, and I'll look at that too, but it's my understanding a carport.
The reason I'm asking is because there are other areas of the city where the parking requirement is only one covered parking space and one uncovered. And did I understand it correctly on chapter 2364 190? It's on page 145 of the packet, that it requires at least one garage, one covered, and a carport. I'm sorry, did I
think there's a word or, garage or carport.
Okay, thank you very much. My confusion. Sorry for that. Councilmember Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be willing to make a motion on this.
Please.
Okay. I know Councilmember McAdams had a hand up before I make the motion.
Why don't you go ahead with the motion, and then we'll have discussion on the motion.
Okay, thank you. It's pretty lengthy, so I'll give it a shot here. Make a motion to introduce and hold the first reading of an ordinance amending PGMC sections 23.08, 23.26, and 23.64 to facilitate affordable housing goals and policies adopted in the 2015-2023 housing element and to allow for reduction of certain parking regulations in the city's retreat neighborhood and direct the publication of the ordinance, which will be satisfied by the publication of a summary approved by the city attorney.
Do I have a second? I'll second that to move discussion along. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question and then I'd like to make a friendly amendment. My question is, does staff need direction in the motion to move forward with Baird and Driscoll to augment their contract? And if so, should we include a not to exceed?
I'm just thinking, well, it's always clearer to include that in the motion if you'd like to do direction, and it's possible we can, if you want to do a do not exceed, if we have to amend the contract, but we may be able to do it within the existing contract. But I will check with them. Obviously, if we need to do an amendment, we would come back to council for that.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I would like to. My friendly amendment would be to also include eliminating the use permit for shared parking, as well as provide staff approval to move forward with Baird and Driscoll with regards to looking into the affordable housing parking recommendation number 4.
And the maker of the motion, Councilmember Emilio.
Yeah, I'll approve that as the maker of the motion, what Councilman McAdams said.
And I'll also endorse that as the seconder of the motion. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a quick question about this use permit on the shared parking. Anastasia, how many projects would be getting a use permit anyway, or be going through the use permit process? So there would be before the planning commission's on a project, and all we're saying is, yeah, you're going to be there, but you don't need to actually worry about the shared parking to be incorporated in that use permit. I know it's speculative, but I'm just wondering how much effect or weight or thought has gone into what we're really accomplishing with reducing the use permit requirement.
Well, if council recalls, but I'm just thinking now, it might have been the previous council, there was another program of the housing element that we brought forward this time last year, I believe. That was to eliminate the requirement for a use permit for housing, multifamily housing that was 7 units or more. Yeah. And that was approved by council. So currently, if we get a proposal that is mixed use or has more, or residential that is 7 units or more, now it's just an architectural permit. So in theory, if it was a development that had a mix of uses on one parcel, there would not be a need for a use permit. It would just be an architectural permit. Where it might come into play, and council may want to consider this, is sometimes developments do propose, especially in commercial areas, tighter commercial areas, propose using a lot that is owned by another property owner. So in that case, that's where you might want to consider a use permit would be applied to that separate lot. Say it's a lot, it would have to be adjacent or proximate, so it's reasonable. But the use permit could be used in that case if it's sort of an off-site parking lot.
I see. Well, and thank you for reminding me about that. And it was about the previous council decision to allow multifamily units to be permitted without a use permit. And as I recall on that one, that could apply to luxury condominiums. It could apply to affordable housing. It could apply to any development. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm just looking, it was program 3.3. Yeah, use permit for multifamily development. Yes.
Yeah, so it's a two-edged sword, or it could be. And so I'm just a little bit on the fence about this issue with the not requiring a use permit, which is discretionary review, basically, for the parking. But I understand there's a motion and a second, so thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, a vote please, Ms. Kendall.
Mayor P,
Aye.
Councilmember Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Poderi,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. We'll now take a 10-minute break and return at 8:40. Ms. Kendall, let the record show that Councilmember Emilio will not be rejoining the meeting.
Okay.
Well, we're now on the new 12A, which is the former 5A, minutes of the March 3, 2021 special and regular meetings and the March 10, 2021 special meeting. And I'm sure, Ms. Kendall, you don't have a prepared.
I do not, no, Your Honor, but I'm happy to hear any amendments, and yeah, I'm open for any amendments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. As normal, any public comment on the minutes? Council minutes? I'm not expecting any.
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll bring it back to council. Councilmember McAdams, you pulled this item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to put on record, so under March 3rd minutes, 3 council and staff announcements. The city attorney's report out, it says council authorized the city manager and city attorney to proceed with litigation against the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration and to contract with Michael Colentino for litigation services. The last sentence of the closed session minutes, as the city manager had already executed an agreement signed by the city manager on February 17th, the city was already in contract with Mr. Colentino for litigation services. I became aware of this information yesterday, March 16th, 2021. So for the sake of transparency, I would like to include this information both in the minutes and on record. Thank you.
Any discussion on the recommendation? Well, let's make it, do you want to make it a motion? Of course.
Sure. So I would move that we add the, hold on one second. Add that to the end of the closed session meeting minutes that the city was already in contract with Mr. Colentino as of February 17th, 2021 for litigation services.
I'll second that. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I mean, we can, you know, I'm not going to support that. I think that we can still authorize the action, whether or not the action was taken. I just don't think it's relevant at this point. We got to just keep moving. That's all.
Well, I endorsed it. I made the second, obviously. I endorsed it, and it's for a transparency that the minutes implied that council gave the approval on a date, February 24th, I believe. Well, however, the city manager had already contracted the city with Michael Colantino's firm for litigation on Measure L, litigation with the CDTFA. So that's left alone. Without this clarifying comment, it's misleading. Councilmember Pedori.
Yes, Mayor, thank you, Mayor. I haven't had time to research this, so I don't know if this is accurate or not. So I don't know if I'll be able to support it. I'm just hearing it, but I haven't spoken to anyone yet to understand whether a contract by its very nature was signed with the lawyer, or was it just, and what the contract nature was itself about.
Well, just to that point, I sent you a copy of the contract that was signed by our city manager to Michael Colantino's firm. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, Mayor. I'm happy to support the amendment to the minutes to kind of make them more accurate. I would also just ask that the fact that the city manager had already entered into an agreement with Michael Colantino prior was something that was within his authority to do so, and direction was given by council to do so. At least that's my understanding of it. So the city manager's on here, and maybe he could clear that up for me.
Councilmember Coletti.
Is he able to answer?
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I didn't hear a question.
Can you
clear up
the city
what?
manager clear that up for me on whether or not he was signed the contract with Michael Colantino under direction from council for that was previously provided?
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Yes, please. I'm
Yes,
still
that is how I was proceeding. That is why and how that took place.
Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Well, I'm a little confused on this myself. Council gave direction to get legal advice from Michael Colantino about whether we would proceed with litigation. And my understanding is that the contract that was executed by the city manager not only allows that feedback or that analysis of our chances, quite frankly, at litigating this issue, but it actually begins the process of litigation in hiring him to litigate. So there are two components to this. One was the component to actually get advice from him, and the second was to actually tell him to proceed with litigation. And I'd like the city attorney's opinion on what this contract actually does. Does it actually enable Mr. Colantino to proceed with litigation? If it does, then the city manager acted hastily. If it doesn't, then we need to kind of get clarification on that. So I'd like the city attorney's opinion on this, please.
Mr. Mayor, this matter is coming before you as to what the minutes should be, not an analysis of a contract. That's not on your agenda. The motion is to essentially provide an explanatory note. I believe that is permissible within the scope of the minutes. Discussion of that contract, though, is not on the agenda, and it should be a separate item.
Well, I can accept that. And I think I've outlined what my questions were, and I'm happy to support the motion. Thank you.
May we have a vote, please?
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmember Miller is not here. Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
No.
Councilmember Smith,
No.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Councilmember Emilio absent for this vote.
Thank you. We'll now move on to, let's see, which is now item 12B, draft city council goals and tactics. Our city manager, Mr. Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This item does not lend itself well to a PowerPoint presentation. This is a bunch of words, as you know. And so I'm just going to be very brief in my description of what's before you. I will tell you, though, that I do have a Word document that I can share on the screen if a council member wants to revisit a proposed goal and or corresponding tactics. So what you have before you is the follow-up of your work back in February. Council, in sum, basically adopted and revised the former city council's goals, making them their own, and proposed some new tactics. I've brought forward to you those revised goals with the tactics suggested with some very minor modifications. I also asked the city staff to take a look at your proposed goals and suggest some corresponding tactics just to flesh them out and to provide some work to go along with the goal itself. So you're here tonight to decide if you'd like to adopt these goals, revise these goals, add tactics, remove tactics, etc. And as I pointed out, I do have the Word document that contains all these items. Again, it didn't lend itself well to a PowerPoint presentation with a bunch of words, and so that's why there is no deck. And with that, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any members of the public wishing to comment?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll bring it back to council. I'm going to suggest we have 7 goals, and I'm going to suggest that we go each goal and ask if there's council comments per goal. We just step through that. If that's agreeable to folks. Anyone not agreeing? Councilmember Smith, you have your virtual hand raised.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna do it that way, but this is my thought. I'm gonna go back to exactly what I said before, because after I looked at the actual document that was prepared by staff, I felt like my points were actually pretty accurate. So Mr. Harvey, through the mayor, would you mind putting up the document and let me just kind of give you my thoughts on this?
Sure, and please give me a moment to see if I can successfully share this. Hang on. Okay, so can you see my screen successfully?
Yeah, oh, I can, yeah.
Please tell me, council member, which goal you'd like me to go to.
So 1, I'm obviously good with. 2, I'm obviously good with. So let's go to 3. So this one was the asset stewardship one. We added that a few years ago. I mean, I think we do this, we have to do this no matter what we do as a city, providing city services and maintaining our assets. I think we're always going to do that. And then I looked at the tactics, and all of those tactics could be consolidated into complete streets. So I would recommend that we remove that goal in order to better focus our goals. And we I'm going to suggest we have 5 goals, and that we kind of try to make it more, take a targeted approach to different things, because some of these things we're doing just as a matter of our business course. And so, like, for instance, in 3, all of those could be in complete streets, and that's what I would recommend. And then can you go to 5 really quick?
Certainly.
So then on 5, financial stability is something that we do all the time as well. And while it's very important, it's actually our strongest area. And so I feel like if it's not broken, don't fix it. And we're creating all these new reports, considering the creation of reports and things like that, which I mean, without going through the fine tooth comb through A through whatever this is, I just feel like, you know, we're already doing so well with this stuff. Why do we need an actual goal and then creating more work for staff to work through things that they're already probably doing 99% because of the fact that they're getting so many awards on it. So that's my take on it. That's all I'm going to say about this entire thing. Thank you.
Okay. I'm still liking my suggestion to go through each one. We can incorporate Councilmember Smith's comments into each one. And I'm not seeing people rise up and yell at me, so let's give it a try. Any comments on goal number 1, complete streets and tactics? And I'm not sure. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I can see everybody. Okay, I have a comment. I would like on tactic B, improve the roadway. I'm not sure what that would entail and how ambitious and how expensive. I suggest we just change it to engage Caltrans because it's their road. We engage Caltrans to improve the roadway. So just in front of improve, put engage Caltrans. And so that tactic is, I think, a lot smaller and more likely to be finished. Any comments, council members? Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, you kind of jogged my memory on the city pursuing Caltrans signing over Highway 68 to the city. So I'm wondering how that's going and whether we want to incorporate, like you're saying, ongoing discussions with Caltrans, incorporate that into this goal. Does the city manager or someone from staff have any status update on that endeavor?
Yes, through the mayor, Councilmember Coletti, we have been engaged with Caltrans for some time on this effort. The headline on it is that it's a slow process. With each poke at Caltrans, there comes a new list of unmet answers to questions we have, notably in the scope of the work and the effort involved. And so we can certainly pursue it, but it's been very slow going. The result, staff's opinion on this matter, it's not worth the squeeze, if you will. It's going to be a sizable additional expenditure each year to maintain that scope of roadway, and we don't have the resources to do so, and the state is not going to provide those resources if you annex that state highway from them.
Okay, thank you for the update.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. The only other tactic that I remember us talking about, and I don't see for this one, is working to connect the Lovers Point project to Lighthouse, to downtown, in whether it be through signage. I'm not sure what the ideas were, but it was brought up, and I wrote it down in my notes, that we wanted to have there be a more flow and connection now that the Lovers Point is redone, so that folks can find their way up to Lighthouse and downtown easier.
Would you like to encapsulate that in a phrase?
I didn't take the time to wordsmith it, but I'll let the city manager add that if everyone's in agreement that it would be a tactic for us.
So, well, let me let me suggest you're talking about provide a concept or a conceptual plan to connect the Lovers Point in downtown through up Forest Avenue. Is
Yeah.
that what?
That would be great.
Any other comments on goal number 1? Councilmember Pedori?
Yeah, I would to Councilmember Tomlinson's point, perhaps add language to say include signage that will connect Lovers Point to downtown to get it more granular. Thanks.
Okay, so that's tactic D. Okay, should we move on to goal number 2, environmental stewardship?
Mhm.
Any suggestions, comments, additions, deletions? Okay, well.
I'll just say, excuse me, I'll just say that I'm glad to see the George Washington Park was added in. And I think that's an important tactic.
Yeah. Yeah, some good tactics there.
All
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
I'm moving on to goal number 3.
I had my hand up, Mayor.
Okay, sorry.
Down for just a second and then back up, if I may. On item 2, I don't see the electric vehicle environmental stewardship goals, and I know we have some. I'm not sure if they were all completed, but I think there were some that were still outstanding. So can we carry that over? The charging stations?
Let me ask, are you asking about completing the current project?
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds like a tactic, Mr. Harvey.
Just, I would respectfully add that if this is a discussion about completing in-flight projects currently, those will be resolved. There are charging stations that are going to be added. If it's the council's desire for still additional charging stations, sure, we can certainly add that as a tactic. We're also in the process of trying to, as vehicles reach the end of their lifespan, to replace with electric vehicles where feasible. But we, as you all know, retain our vehicles for an extraordinary period of time, and we have very skilled mechanics.
So,
Councilmember Tomlinson.
So the current electric vehicle charging stations installs will be completed. No need to bring it over. That was my question. Okay. I wouldn't mind putting the tactic down if you think during the next 2 years, being able to change some of our fleet over, that would be a great tactic, I think, to track and make sure that we do. If the vehicles we currently have are so good that it's not going to be a good, not good to do that in the next 2 years. But yeah, I would support that as a tactic.
So if I can put words in your mouth to purchase electric replacement city vehicles or replace city vehicles with electric.
Yeah, when possible and feasible and as soon as possible, I guess. Okay.
Okay. Replace city vehicles. Hey, Councilmember Pedori.
Yeah, I have a question, and sorry if I should have done some research in there. But the new Institute of Local Government Beacon Awards for Energy Efficiency, one of the things that I think we brought up, or at least I brought up, was around carbon offsets and how we can become like look at the carbon footprint that we have and see what we can do there. Does this item, like when I read it, I kind of like thought that would be the goal. Does it intrinsically address that issue around carbon offsets or how we can become carbon neutral?
Well, it works in moving us in that direction, but it doesn't specifically, it's not a goal, or it's not a goal of becoming carbon neutral, or a goal of, or tactic of purchasing carbon offsets, but it's a goal of reducing our energy use across the board and using renewable resources. So
maybe then I could suggest that item number B would be to determine what our carbon footprint is as a baseline.
So you want a new tactic, determine carbon footprint of local government?
Yes.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to include as a tactic projects that support the amount of tourism that our environmental assets have been experiencing. And so that would be trash receptacles, recycling bins, water refill stations on the bike path, potential like the dog waste bag stations, those types of smaller projects, because as we're seeing more and more tourism and use, our city is not keeping up with that. And so I would like to see some planning, and actually there are some projects that there are some issues that we could resolve quickly. So I think that would be something good to include as a tactic.
Okay, so we got by my count, we have 3 new tactics. I'm going to suggest we just keep plowing through the list, and then we'll need to circle back. That's all right with everybody. So goal number 3, Councilmember Smith recommends that we roll all these goals into goal number 1, complete streets. Do we have any comments on these goals? Councilmember Coletti.
Well, I'm not sure I agree with that, especially as and this is going to come next in the next agenda item, one of our core values as provided is stewardship. And so I think it makes sense to reflect that value as a goal, council goal, and associated strategies. I would actually like to add something to this list, and that is upkeep of our signage. This has come to my attention through the president of the Chamber of Commerce, who's apparently had to do his own fundraising. I'm not 100% clear on the details, but had to go out and do some fundraising to actually get a sign repainted at the entrance of Pacific Grove. So if those are the things that that we're using to welcome people to the community, I think that would be something we want to maintain as well. So I can understand what Councilman Smith is saying, but I do think we should keep this as a goal. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, sir. I also think this should be a goal, and I think that while it looks like there were just 3 here, these 3 are good, but there are quite a few missing from what we discussed at the first meeting, by my count. So, my notes were, we talked about the enhancing the access and just overall enhancement of the community center, the recreation center, the youth center, Chautauqua Hall, these types of assets. Setting some goals or setting some tactics around making that possible, and putting a cover on the pool, making a tactic of completing the trail project. I mean, not just, I do believe that's well on its way, and it's going to happen, but why not have that be an explicit tactic? So those were a few that I had: the trail project, the pool cover, recreation, youth center, Chautauqua Hall, community center, and enhancing kind of natural open spaces. I mean, we may not do all of that in 2 years, but I'd like to have the rec department come up with some tactics around those areas.
I see that our city manager would like to have some comments on that. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor. Through the mayor to Councilmember Thomason, you're correct that there were some proposed tactics that we did not include, but we did not include them because we felt that those were potential candidates for the capital improvement program, and so we put them in that bucket. We're trying to avoid having a tactic be as specific as, say, replace a pool cover, change an entryway to a facility. We see those as very detailed projects that you guys, that the city council will review and consider when you adopt your CIP. And so here, and maybe an example would be going back to number 1, which dealt with Caltrans, because that is an effort involving Caltrans and it's a negotiation. We felt that should be a tactic, but specific CIP projects we're trying to keep off of this list because we're looking for more general, higher level items.
Okay, thank you. That's fair enough. That makes sense. I would still maybe propose adding the trail project, as it is such a bigger item to the tactic. But the others I understand that will be on the CIP list. Okay.
Okay, a complete Point Pinos Trail project is what I heard. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Tomlinson, for bringing up those projects that we did talk about, because that sort of flagged me too. I'm wondering, could we perhaps have a tactic be invest in recreation or invest in city recreation and outdoor assets, something along those lines? So, as a council, we'll sort of have that, remember, the pool cover, or remember the other, potential CIP projects that we discussed. I mean, at least with the Chautauqua Hall, investing in the community center. So we're really committing to investing in the city recreation and outdoor assets. That would be, I think, a reasonable tactic that will keep us on track.
I like that.
Okay. Any other comments? I've got a question for Mr. Harvey on B, update sidewalk policy. It's 700-4, and the phrase enhance funding mechanisms. Update policy to enhance funding mechanisms. I'm at a loss as to what that means.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I'd like to call upon Mr. Go and Ms. Hallaby, our CIP Public Works experts, to weigh in on that tactic. I believe that revision came from their shop. Mr. Go and or Ms. Hallaby, please.
You're muted, Mr. Go.
Okay, it looks like maybe we don't have them at the moment because this might have been the one I had recommended that we identify safe routes to school. We always talk about it. I have yet to see a map that says there is the safe route to school. There it is. It's always a general term, and I never see a map. That was perhaps the genesis of this particular item, and now it's morphed to something else.
I do see Mr. Go on the line. I don't know if he's having technical issues. No, it looks like we can't hear him for some reason, unfortunately.
And the other question I had was on tactic A, create a stormwater master plan. I'm just wondering how involved this is. I think it might have been my suggestion, so I really like it, but I'm just wondering about the cost and hiring consultants to do this. Maybe that's a comment about the practicality of that particular tactic. Okay, anyhow, if Mr. Harvey, if you could get back to us on those two tactics, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Certainly.
The practicality of tactic A and just what does enhance funding mechanisms mean on tactic B? Councilmember Tomlinson.
Mayor, I was just going to throw in that on item or tactic number 1, complete streets, talks about the safe routes to school part that I do remember us talking about. So my take on number 3 was was when we were talking about the city assets, it was brought up in my notes about completing more sidewalks. And just, we have a lot of sidewalks that sort of disappear and end. And so I agree with your question about enhancing funding mechanisms, but I do think tactic B is not about the safe routes to the school. It's more about just completing our sidewalks around the city in general. And maybe there's some sort of funding that they want to apply for that is my guess.
Well, thank you for pointing that out. Maybe we ought to put those together so our sidewalks are all in one tactic. Because obviously I had glossed over that. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I too had made a point about a safe path or sidewalk in between Cynics and Lighthouse along Asilomar. And that was part of the safe street, but also it looks like there's some confusion on where we're actually dealing with sidewalk policy. But if we are kind of focusing sidewalk policy into item 1, complete streets, I'd like to see the tactic for evaluating safe passage along Asilomar Boulevard in between Cynics and Lighthouse. Thank you.
Okay, no further comment on goal number 3. Let's move on to goal number 4. Councilmember Coletti.
Excuse me, Mayor, I left my hand up.
Okay, well then I'll kick it off. In terms goal number 4, I'd like to add one. Where's our cannabis outreach program? Am I missing something? Is it somewhere else in here?
No, Mr. Mayor. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
It's not. It was prior direction provided, but we can certainly put that in there.
And I had a question about tactic F, conduct training sessions for city employees. I'm just wondering who would get these training sessions.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, sorry to interrupt you again. We would ask the human resources to determine that. Obviously, some training sessions might not be appropriate for all employees, but we would like, if we could, to provide general training and transparency and accountability, and also communication, because those are good skills for all city employees to have. The level of detail and number of sessions might vary with the position and the responsibility, but I would want the city's human resources director to provide that lens and some guidance.
Well, my reaction is that yourself and your direct reports really are the key decision makers in this area. I would think that's where the training should be focused. There's a lot of city staff that I don't see having in this particular area. That's just my thought. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I question the need for A. I don't know why that would be a tactic. That's just going back to regular business. And I also don't like it being contingent upon removal of the furlough. I don't know why that would be part of a goal, part of a tactic where we're just we're just starting back up the boards and commissions. So that's just my thought. I mean, I guess we can leave it in there, but I definitely don't like it being contingent upon removal of the citywide furlough. I would like to remove that sentence for sure.
All right, that sounds pretty good. We don't have contingencies written into other tactics, but let's revisit staff resources and have that discussion at the end of my recommendation. Any other comments on goal number 4? Okay, goal number 5, financial stability. Councilmember Smith has recommended we eliminate all the tactics. Councilmember Pedori.
Yeah. So my suggestion here, I don't want to eliminate this tactic at all. I think we need to keep our focus on financial stability no matter what. But I think some of these items, like item number B, item number E, it says consider creation, consider a fee study. I think we should just create. We should say the goal should be to create, or the goal should be to develop a fee study. I don't like the word consider over there.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm agreeing with Councilmember Pedori. I don't want to couch these tactics or strategies with any kind of qualifiers. We should, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. I do like seeing, and by the way, I think this is probably one of the more important goals that we have right now. Coming out of COVID and all the uncertainty that presents. So this is probably our number one goal that we should focus on, in my opinion. And I do really like seeing creating additional city finance reports. I'm thinking of the check register, for instance, which used to be presented by the city for the review of the public. And there's a lot of things we can do. And this ties in with transparency, certainly. So these are good. Get more information out to the public so that they can understand the situation, the financial situation that we're all in. And those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you. I just wanted to show my support for Councilmember Padori's comment. And I agree with Councilmember Smith, like, yes, this is a given, but I also agree in the sense that this is so important to our city, and financial stability does need its own individual tactics. So I think, these are good, and I'm sure that more will come up. My only question about the fee study, I don't remember talking about that, so I apologize. I'm not sure who brought that up, but the updates, as well as updates to reflect the reduction in short-term rental licensing and permits. What does that mean? Does that mean we're going to up the building fees to offset the loss in the short term? I mean, I don't understand what that means exactly. Maybe the city manager can help me with that.
Yes, sorry, Councilmember McAdams, through the mayor. So a number of these tactics were added by city staff just in an effort to provide you with some additional options as you were going through your goals. When the city council last did a fee study, building fees were not included as part of that. And so it's appropriate now to consider that. You could, that's what we're asking, is have a third party like Matrix, who did the last one, take a look at the fees and make some recommendations. And the reason why the short-term rental licensing program is in there is that it has shrank considerably since its inception. And so it is appropriate at this time to look at the licensing and the permits and determine if those are appropriate or inappropriate. It's not, when those fees were set, it was a different size program than it is now.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Yes, Mayor. I agree with a lot of things that have already been said. I think our finance department does kick butt, and they're great. And setting clear goals for them to continue to do so with appropriate tactics is good for their department and for all of us. So I support keeping this goal. And I want to add to it for G, maybe. I'm not sure if F was an attempt at this, but G, it was said that HDL would be able to assist us with doing some kind of analysis or report on missing revenue opportunities, and identifying, or maybe it was E here, in the building fee schedule is one of those areas, and the short-term rental licensing and permits is another one. But maybe we can have an overall encompassing goal of having HDL look for those missing revenue opportunities, to include those two. Somehow combining E with a G would be something I'd like to see. And then I really think this, and someone correct me if it's in here, I swear I saw it, the local water project, but now I can't find it. So I think it belongs here in financial stability, that the local water project review of that business plan needs to happen in order to bring financial stability to that project. Is it somewhere else and I'm missing it?
It's 2F, Amy.
2F. Okay.
I think you're right, though. It should be in there too.
Okay, as long as it's in here, I'm fine with that. But I could definitely make the argument that it should go in financial stability. But environmental stewardship is also going to, it also works there. But thank you for pointing it out. I couldn't find it.
Councilmember Smith, you had your hand raised. All right. I'd like to add 2 items to this. One is to implement or increase sales tax by 1/2 cent. And the other one is staff to provide council with options for American Recovery Plan funding. That's the 2.9 million. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add to the American Recovery Plan, perhaps some community outreach or community input, how they would like to see the money spent. That could be just a single Google form. In addition to having staff cut, it would be prudent of us to do some outreach and see how our residents would like for us to invest that money in the city. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm kind of gonna riff on what you and Councilmember Tomlinson mentioned. I believe we are in contract with HDL to perform some kind of analysis on the collection of our sales tax. And I'll leave it up to you, Mayor, but I think that was going to get reported back to us, perhaps in June, fairly soon. And whether that should be included as an ongoing effort or tactic in financial stability, getting that feedback and then acting on that feedback that HDL through the HDL contract we signed. So I just throw that out for your consideration.
Okay, seeing no further comments, let's go on to number 6. We're on the home stretch. Increase affordable housing. Councilmember Coletti, you have your hand up. I don't know if it was left up.
It was left up. I apologize.
All right. Councilmember Pedori.
Yeah, my view is that we have a local body, Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, that actually does conduct like affordable housing initiatives and what needs to be done. They've actually published some reports as well on potential things that a city should consider in terms of increasing affordable housing. These 4 items may be part of those things. I don't know, but my recommendation is to actually at least kind of, I would say, implement the recommendations to the extent possible from the MBEP. Probably it's contained in this, but I just want to make sure.
Any other comments? Feedback on this? Seeing none, let's go to facilitate local business recovery, goal number 7. Well, I'm going to start off comments. I'm sorry, whoever, to the person that suggested tactic C, reviews city special events to determine the benefit the local economy. I really don't care what the economic effect of the butterfly parade is. That might be interesting, but I don't think I'm going to do anything about it or really need that information. And that goes for a whole host of special events. This has come up before, and it's been discussed with city staff and also the Chamber of Commerce. And this is not something that is even practical to do, because the restaurants and the hoteliers, they do not report their sales on such a granular level that we'd be able to identify any sort of change or bump due to a special event. And as I said, there are many special events that we do. It's not to put money in the city coffers. It's for the community. So I suggest we drop that one. On item D, a property-based improvement district for downtown. I question, do we have to hire a consultant to do this, Mr. Harvey? What kind of effort? Is that a modest effort? Or it sounds to me like this is a major effort.
It's not insignificant. We might need some type of consulting on it. There are area communities that have done this that we can turn to for guidance. But if you want to remove this one, that's fine. This is a longer term approach on a method to improve the downtown.
We're going to have to probably trim this list of tactics at some point. That would be very much low on my, as you point out, a long term. Going on to item F, consider creation of city water entitlement loan program. Well, we're going to be talking about promissory notes. We already give folks a benefit there. I'm very much disinclined to becoming the bank to take in or creating a loan program. If folks have the capital to add to their home or put up a commercial building, I think the water is maybe the least of their financial issues. So I recommend we drop F. And we add an outdoor dining program. Well, actually, that's already on our agenda today. And small business local recovery plan. Couple of items. Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. So my suggestion here is to add, maybe in lieu of item number C, probably consider adding establishing a music and entertainment program to attract tourists, music businesses, and musicians. The intent is to revitalize downtown, which will help with the economic recovery. And I think we need to make downtown more livelier than what it is right now. Thanks.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to agree with you on C. I think that should be removed. I am kind of curious to know where D came from and if the city's already invested some work in that already. Because I believe that we need to start thinking about a long-term downtown redevelopment plan. And I understand that it's not going to be on the front burner, but we've got to let this at least simmer as well. And this could include some action or suggestions from the Planning Commission on the reconfiguration of downtown, and ties in with outside dining too. We've got to make a determination on what's going to happen with the parklets sooner than later. And so I think for me, a long-term downtown redevelopment or economic enhancement, whatever you want to call it, but a long-term plan for the reconfiguration and best use of downtown. As I've mentioned before, the city is the largest land property owner in the downtown. We own all the sidewalks and all the streets. So I think we do need to develop a long-term plan on what the best configuration of our sidewalks and the streets will be in the downtown to encourage business. Because what we're asking for, you know, an updated and modernized economic intensification with old configuration and an outdated infrastructure. So that's on my mind. And I would like to just maybe get an answer from the city manager where D initially came from and whether that was part of any prior work. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, a lot of good ideas on this one that I've heard. I like the mayor's comments on these various things. I would agree with all of that. And the city becoming a bank, not interested. And in relation to Councilmember Coletti's comment, I think that would be a good. So there's been floating around over the last few years. There's been this downtown design program, which I don't recall the exact name of, but we saw it at Planning Commission, or we saw parts. Maybe I saw it. I don't know who saw it, but I don't know if it actually made a Planning Commission meeting. But there was a concept going on. I think it did actually make a Planning Commission meeting at some point, but this was back maybe 15, 16, to revitalize the downtown parking. And then it's going to take a lot of input. But I think that's kind of what Councilmember Coletti is talking about, is how can we make this more attractive, the parking, or make it more enticing to draw people in. Although I will say that, you know, we did get voted, you know, top 30 small town destinations or something like that last year. So we are fairly sought after already, but I think there's probably room for improvement. And so we should put that in this category for now, because that's where it fits best in this particular set of goals. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have. I think it is. There's some good ideas though that have come out on this one. Thank you.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, on this one, I'm fine with getting rid of C and F. And then I think the mayor was the one who recommended the small business local recovery plan, or whoever did. I support that. And I'd like to add to it that it involves from the city engagement with all stakeholders and in a community effort. So I know we have a tactic of listening or evaluating the Chamber of Commerce's recommendations. You know, in putting together a local recovery plan and working with anything that we do with our businesses in downtown, you know, getting the various stakeholders in a room and coordinated for that effort should be a tactic. And while one might say that's obvious, it doesn't always happen. So I think it should be spelled out in one of our tactics. And then I liked the idea as well for the music and an entertainment type program. And I don't have a lot to offer there, but I think that sounds like a good idea and something that our community would enjoy if it's not too loud and at the wrong times. But I think that music would fit this community really well. So.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate everyone's comments. I too like the idea of having music entertainment, and perhaps that is something that we could incorporate in our outdoor dining program. And I also, you know, I don't like the loan aspect of the water entitlements, but we do have them. And so maybe if there were like a water entitlement incentive program, or a larger discount. I'm not sure. I mean, I do think that having the water entitlements does make us unique and different from really any city on the peninsula. So I like the concept of we have them, how can we use them? I don't want to be a bank either, but I mean, can we incentivize some way? So, and I also really like to, start the long steps of planning downtown and, making sure we're utilizing the space correctly. Is there another layout that would entice people, make them want to stay longer, those kinds of ideas. So thank you.
Councilmember.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilmember McAdams just raised a point, and that got me thinking. But item number F, right? Perhaps so we can do something specifically for affordable housing or lower, like income housing specifically to that point, because I think that's one of the specific RENA numbers that we're definitely not able to meet. And I think if we can do something there, whether it's loan or whether further incentives, I think that might trigger that number. Thank you.
All right, not seeing any further comment. I feel like we've been asked to sit on Santa Claus's lap, and we've given Santa Claus our list of presents we want, and maybe it's time to give staff, our city manager and department heads, to take back this list, which is only grown, and figure out really what parts of it are practical, doable in 2 years. Staff has taken these tactics in the past, and I assume we are assuming that these tactics will be accomplished by the end of 2022, or substantial efforts will have been done by 2022. So I'm asking for a reality check by staff, and maybe some help if our list is too long, which I suspect it is, maybe some help from staff to identify what things will take a lot of resources and time, and what things will be quick, and what should be high priority, what should be low. Mr. Harvey, your thoughts?
Yes, Mayor, but before we go there, I had my hand up because I wanted to respond to a couple of questions that have been asked. One was regarding downtown revitalization, and Councilmember Smith was recalling a prior plan, which actually not only went to the Planning Commission, but also went to the City Council. And Mayor, you were on council along with, I think, Councilmember Smith. Maybe he was on the Planning Commission then, maybe you were on the City Council. But the city did commission a design proposal for reimagining the downtown. We have that. That's been done. We could certainly bring that back. That was a prior director at the Community Development Department, but we do have that work. That's there. The other question was about the property-based improvement district. That was actually in the prior goals as a tactic. And the reason why it was there, it's a common way that cities revitalize their downtown. They do it. You have to do it through a vote of a district that's determined. And if the majority votes to tax themselves, then they create a mechanism for improving their own area. And notably here, Salinas has a very successful PBID. There are other communities that do, but that's where that came from. And that was in the last goal set. We would be happy, Mayor, I think it's probably a better use of time if we are able to take these back and review them a little bit more and maybe bring them back to you one more time, rather than me providing spot analysis on all of these. I think that's probably a better use of time. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple follow-up questions for the city manager. I guess my question was, has the city done anything on item F already? Or I realize it was on the prior list of goals, but have we done anything towards that yet? Is there any work that's been?
D. I'm sorry,
Excuse me, D. Yes, sorry.
Through the mayor, no, Councilmember Coletti, we have not initiated an effort, and that would be one that would involve all the stakeholders. There would be a considerable amount of outreach. And again, it is a legal mechanism that you'd have to undertake it. People have to vote on that. Okay, thank you for that. I do remember, by the way, the original presentation made by Mark Brodeur about wayfinding. And a lot of that just involved putting large signs up about what street you were on. That was some of it. So that was an effort, but I'm talking a little bit more of a overall long-term plan for reconfiguration and configurability of downtown, not just the wayfinding signs that were proposed back then. So thank you for allowing me to clarify.
So council members, are you all right? Well, this is, let's see, this would be a direction to staff. Let's see. Review, revise, and adopt. I'm not sure we're at the adopt stage at the moment. We've certainly reviewed it and revised it. So I think if council members are satisfied with the input and our city manager feels that he's got a lot to work with. Councilmember Smith.
Just real quick, that plan that Mr. Brodeur had prepared was in my recollection, was more extensive than signs. It was like a reconfiguration of the parking in the center of the street on Lighthouse Avenue, lighting, all kinds of stuff. It was pretty extensive. So yeah, I'd like to see it come back. That'd be kind of interesting. But yeah, I'll just leave it there for this item. Thanks.
So Mr. Harvey, if you could send that downtown plan to all of council, that would be much appreciated.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know that it lends itself well to just sending to all council. I'll have to talk to Director Aziz and see. It was a pretty large, there were plan sets. I'll have to check and see it.
Oh, okay.
It's not a simple, here's a PowerPoint type thing.
All right. Maybe just the summary, few pages, whatever makes sense. All right. It's not quite 10 o'clock, so I'm going to forge ahead to the next item. It is City Council Vision Statement and Values. Council members Tomlinson, McAdams, and Coletti. Who would like to present this one?
I will, Mayor. Thank you.
Please.
Ms. Kendall, would you mind sharing your screen and putting up the PowerPoint? Thank you. Next slide, please. So Councilmember Tomlinson, Councilmember Coletti, and I, at the February 10th meeting, we were tasked to review the council vision statement and values. On March 6th, 2021, we met via Zoom and we reviewed them. We did a little work and some back and forth, and here we are this evening returning with our recommendations. Next slide. So the recommendations that we came up with, there are 4. The first one is to include the date on any revisions moving forward. The second is to change our values to core values. Third is to revise the vision statement. And the fourth is to remove and replace the values with 5 new core values. Next slide, please. So the 5 core values that we came up with, I'll go ahead. Should I read them? I will. So leadership, we strive to uphold the highest work ethic, treat everyone fairly, empower people to do their best, promote continuous improvement, foster teamwork, communicate openly and positively so as to achieve trust and accountability throughout our community. Councilmember Coletti, would you like to read inclusiveness?
Oh, I always hated it when the teacher called on me. Sure, let me go from reader A to reader B. Inclusiveness, we cultivate an environment of trust and respect for all residents and visitors alike. We strive to ensure that our actions are inclusive and reflective of the diverse community of which we aim to be.
Councilmember Tomlinson, would you like to do integrity?
Sure. For integrity, we safeguard public trust through honest business practices and open communication. Our credibility with the public depends on our strong ethical stewardship of all resources.
Collaboration, we promote transparent engagement with citizens and stakeholders and expect our managers and consultants to understand the needs and values of our community. And Councilmember Coletti, do you want to do the last one, stewardship?
Sure, stewardship. Yes, thank you. Stewardship. We protect our unique natural environment and the habitat it provides. We facilitate a culture of sustainable practices. We maintain and preserve our municipal assets.
So with regards to the core values, you know, obviously we updated them. They're, I think, they're just stronger and they have more meaning to them. So I really appreciated doing this practice with Councilmember Tomlinson and Coletti as well. And I hope that the council and residents like these core values and will buy in. Because that is really important, is that we all buy into these. So the next slide. And so this is the revised statement. Councilmember Tomlinson, do you want to read it?
Sure, yes. So Pacific Grove will thoughtfully grow as an inclusive seaside community that protects residential character, historic resources, promotes multi-beneficial development, and ensures respect for the environment.
And so for me, I mean, that really captures so much. And I hope that as far as a vision, you know, it definitely is updated compared to the current vision statement. And Councilmember Tomlinson included this promotes multi-beneficial development. And I really, really like that statement. And the next slide. So just to summarize the recommendations we have for you this evening, and then of course, Councilmember Tomlinson or Coletti, if you have anything to add, please do so.
Thank you. I get kind of grumbled. I'll just add that in case you haven't, because we didn't, in case you haven't looked at it recently, the values before was just a list of 12 things. And so Councilmember McAdams had the recommendation to adopt core values, where I'm pretty sure all 12 of those values are inside the core values, and then they're expanded upon as well. So that was the exercise we went through of picking the 5 core values, and so many of our original values are in there. It's just a little bit more robust way to commit to these core values.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think it was a good way of doing it, is to provide the core value and then expand on it with some narrative and further explanation. So I feel like it's a step in the right direction, and I enjoyed working with Councilmember Tomlinson and McAdams in preparing this for council. And thank you.
Thank you.
Let's go out for public comment.
Inga Doimer, you have the floor.
Welcome.
Thank you. I very much like the change to core values. I like the expansion. I think it was a lovely effort, and I have one problem, and that is that open communication, if it's truthful, is not always positive. And especially these days, public needs communication that's not limited to just the feel good, but encompasses all information. We kind of need to see the dirty laundry and the warts too, and not everything is positive, but it needs, for open communication, for leadership, it needs to all be aired. It's a lovely effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no other hands raised, Mayor.
All right, let me ask a question. Ms. Domer referenced the word positive, and I'm not sure if she was referring to the leadership text. It says communicate open and positively so as to achieve trust and accountability. Yeah, I have a question about the use of the word positively. What was meant by the use of that word? Councilmember Tomlinson?
Yeah, I did a lot of the wordsmithing on that one, and I think I wrote the word positively there. And my intent in using that word was to say that when communicating, to communicate, it can be something that is unfavorable, but you can still communicate it positively or kindly, maybe. That was just my intent, not to only talk about positive topics. I just think that leaders can communicate in a kind and my word is, I guess, positive way. But I'm open to wordsmithing that to a different word. I just feel that it may be constructive rather than the opposite. I just feel like the communication, we would want to be respectful back and forth as we communicate. And I totally agree that communication will run the gamut of things that you want to hear and things you don't want to hear. But it can all be done respectfully and in my opinion, positively. So anyway, that's where it came from. But if you all want to change that word, I'm fine with that.
Well, I like the alternatives actually that you just suggested, which is respectfully and constructively. Okay. Add a few more adjectives. I like both of those as opposed to positively, which, as I said, actually left me questioning it. But overall, my reaction is this is terrific. I just couldn't like this more. I just thank you so much for doing this and putting your heads together. I think it's just a wonderful result. Really appreciate it. Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would like to echo those comments. We have 3 council members on this, and this is what we get from collaboration. So thank you, everybody, for putting your heads together, making this work. I really love it. Compared to the 12 values that we had versus the 5 now, it's fantastic, really. And I actually, to Councilmember McAdams' point, I had to Google what multi-beneficial development means. So to me, it's like wow, okay, that's great. I mean, that's what we have in our core, the vision itself. So that's something that's fantastic. So thank you very much. And finally, the comment that was made, I think, Mayor, you hit it right on the dot. So instead of saying foster teamwork, communicate openly and positively, what Councilmember Tomlinson said, probably say communicate openly and with respect so as to achieve trust and accountability. If just laying that down as a suggestion. Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Good job, guys. That was really well done by my three colleagues. That was very well done. I don't want to repeat too much. Although, if we're going to get into wordsmithing, then I might have to say, let's see here, communicate openly and respectfully so as to achieve trust, or communicate openly, constructively, and respectfully so as to achieve trust. Thank you.
I suggest we leave it to our very able subcommittee to decide among those two alternatives. May I hear a motion, please? It looks like, yeah, we need a motion to adopt this these statements. Councilmember Tomlinson.
I move that we review and accept recommendations to revise the City Council vision statement and values, include revision date, remove and replace vision statement, and remove and replace values with core values. And to change, we will change that one sentence per the guidance.
And a second?
Second.
May we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri.
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti.
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 601.
Thank you. It's now after 10 o'clock and we'll need a motion to continue the items or plow on through the agenda. We have 3 agenda items remaining. I believe none are time sensitive. Councilmember Tomlinson.
I move to continue the last 2 items to the next meeting and adjourn.
All right, it's 3 items. We have the water entitlement allocation and wait list, 8B.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Excuse me. All 3 items, 8B included.
Second.
Discussion on the motion. May we have a vote, please? Ms. Kendall, you're muted. Everybody on
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti.
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 601.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the participants in today's meeting and those folks that are still with us, as well as council members and staff. And it was St. Patrick's Day. I hope you enjoyed that as well. Have a good night. Meeting adjourned.